So last night, I'm listening to Amazon's earnings call, and this is why it's so important to listen to earnings calls or read the transcripts or do both. Read the transcript while you listen to the call. Now, I was driving, so obviously all I could do was just listen to the call, right? So, anywho, um, this analyst asked Andy this question here. I'm about to share with you guys, and Andy Jassy's answer is very telling, and it's so important to listen to the earnings call because of this particular thing. You're not going to find this information anywhere else, right? You can read the income statements, understand the business model, look at all the slides in the slide deck, you know, read the press releases, go dig in deep on the company, understand the business model, where it's going, what it's doing, but to truly understand and contextual, kind of get an idea of like where we're at in a growth stage of a certain part of a business or in a business in general. Um, you got to do stuff like listen to this question. Anyways, it's not gonna take too long, a couple of minutes, and then I'm gonna share my thoughts after, or maybe like yeah, share my thoughts after.
And the next question comes from the line of Justin Post with Bank of America. Please proceed with your question.
Great, thanks. I'll go back to AWS. I know in the past you said revenues can be lumpy. Can you explain why they might fluctuate up and down if it's beyond just capacity? And you see the competitors, with some pretty good growth rates. How do you think about the difference there? Obviously, your dollar growth is very good, but how do you think about the difference there versus some of your competitors? Thank you.
Well, the first thing I would say is when we've historically said that revenue can be lumpy, this was, we've been saying this well before what's happened with AI over the last couple of years. And the reason for that is the sales cycle particularly for enterprise. It's true for startups. What you really want is you want to have the type of capabilities where startups want to primarily choose to run on top of your platform. And that's true. If you look in the startup space, the vast majority of successful startups over the last 10 to 15 years have run on top of AWS. And it's unpredictable when those startups are going to find product market fit and grow substantially. And it's hard for them to predict and even harder for us to predict. And the same thing goes on the enterprise side but in a different way, when the sales cycle on the enterprise side is that you spend time trying to convince people that they should move from on-premises to the cloud, and then that you have the right solution for them, and then you pick a set of projects that you get experience on, and sometimes they use systems integrators, sometimes they use our own professional services, sometimes they're doing it themselves. Then there's a next tranche of migrations, and those migrations just take time. And some companies get through them really quickly, and some companies take longer to get through them. And what happens a lot of times, too, is that they get excited and enthusiastic about the cost advantages and the speed of innovation advantages they get moving to the cloud. And what was supposed to be a smaller next tranche turns into a much larger next tranche. And all of that has been true for a long time. It's very hard for us to predict because it really is contingent on what enterprises, how they want to sequence it and resource it. Then you throw in AI, which has its own very fast growth cycle, particularly in certain types of use cases, and those change. I mean, I'll give you just some examples. In the early days of the earliest days, I should say, of AI, what you've seen the most amount of has been initiatives that get you productivity and cost avoidance. And we've seen that from so many of our AWS customers. And we're doing a lot of it ourselves inside of Amazon using AI. And then you've also seen, I would say, large-scale training. With a lot of those are running on top of this as well. And as you know, Anthropic is running building their next few training models on top of our Trainium 2 chip on AWS. And then you've seen a couple really big chatbots. And then what you've seen just in the last few months is really kind of the explosion of coding agents. And if you just look at the growth of these coding agents the last few months, these are companies like Cursor or Vercel. Both of them run significantly on AWS. But just look at the growth of that over the last few months. You just couldn't have predicted that sort of growth. And so that's why it's lumpy. Sometimes you'll have, very significant increases that you didn't predict and you couldn't forecast. And then, they'll grow at a good rate, but maybe not the same rate before the next big kind of explosive growth. And I would tell you that everything I just mentioned, what's interesting in AI is that we still haven't gotten to all the other customer experiences that are going to be reinvented and all the other agents that are going to be built. They're going to take the role of a lot of different functions today. And they're so, even though we have a lot of combined inference in those areas, I would say we're not even at the second strike of the first batter in the first inning. It is so early right now. And then,
you hear that? He's talking about we're just at the second. We're not even at the second strike of the first batter of the first inning here. Think about the level of growth. That is just for Amazon. Now, I'm a shareholder, and this isn't financial advice. Obviously, I hold shares of this freaking company. You'd be dumb not to. But because it's like even from here, if you started buying from here, just under 200, I think it's $190 a share or something like that right now. 180, 190, something like that. But just with the growth here of AWS, and this is just a segmented part of the AWS growth vector. You know what I'm saying? We're not talking about like entire growth. But it's kind of crazy, right? It's just, think about what he just said, We're not even at the second strike of the first batter in the first inning. What AWS is like, I think in the earnings call he said something about right around $117 billion run rate. What happens when it becomes a $50 billion quarter business? You know what I mean? And we're looking at $200 billion run rate. That's 100% possible if we're this early on. You know what I mean? And there was an interview last year, and I say this over and over again in my videos and to people. AWS CEO was on some CNBC or something like that, and he was talking about how there was still 85% of businesses that needed to move workloads to the cloud. So that's another part of the growth there. You know what I'm saying? Like 85%. Now that was like last May, last June, so about a year ago. But they probably haven't moved that many more. What are we looking at? 80%? I'm not talking. You got to understand that like Amazon's not the only player in the space. Microsoft, Google Cloud. I don't know how Oracle works into that exactly. I know they're a cloud workload company, but they do work with Amazon, Google, and Microsoft as well. So I'm not sure how they all integrate together exactly 100%. Maybe I should go in and research all that. Probably going to go in and research all that now. But this is why it's so important to listen to the earnings calls, because you get this information that you won't get anywhere else. And that's just kind of like to understand to the point of growth here. I'm going to go ahead and end the rest of the question and then finish this video off. But I just thought this was so important to bring to you guys, so I made the video today.
And I would just say on the how to think about relative growth rates, you always have to, the year-over-year growth rate is really only a function of the percentage growth on the base with which you are operating from. And we just have a very, a meaningfully larger base on the technology infrastructure side than others. And so when, it's still, if you think about 17% year-over-year growth on a $117 billion revenue run rate, still pretty significant growth. And as I said, I think we could be doing more if we had more capacity, and I expect that the capacity to ease in the coming months.
Thank you.
All right, so at the end, there's also that important right there. He says, I think we can do more if we had more capacity, right? And this is, I'm going to go straight into NVIDIA and AMD here, so you can get an understanding. And this is not a problem with just Amazon. It's a problem with Google. It's a problem with Microsoft. It's a problem with, think about like Oracle's remaining performance obligations of $130 billion last quarter, right? That's insanity. Think about like ServiceNow and Salesforce have a combined like 40-something billion dollars RPO. What? So between those three companies, we're looking at 170, probably $180 billion RPO between Salesforce, ServiceNow, and and Oracle, and likely it's growing. ServiceNow's grew. We don't know about. I haven't listened to Salesforce or Oracle's, coming up earnings calls, but think about that. If they're so compute constrained, it's the demand isn't coming from the top down like the Amazon, the Meta, the Google, the Microsoft. The demand isn't because of or the ChatGPT, OpenAI thing. The demand isn't from the top down where like we're getting these chips and this is what we're offering. If you guys want it, come get it. It's more like we want it, we want it, we want it. We need more compute. Get us some more compute. We want more compute, and that's all these bottom businesses and everything. Hollering at Amazon, and then Amazon phones up NVIDIA, Broadcom, and AMD, and they say, hey, what do you got? We need some more, right? And I think that we need to really, truly, truly understand that, and that question right there helps you understand where we're at. You know what I'm saying? It helps you understand where we're at. Anyways, that's all I got, y'all. Please hit the like button. Give me a comment if you enjoyed that. I mean, that's quality ass information, dude. So, I would say, share it with somebody, in this avenue. You know what I'm saying? Because, I don't see people doing many things like the earning call type stuff right here. I mean, some people do it, but, this is very important to listen to right here. Please share it to somebody that you know would enjoy or just didn't even know about it. Thank you.